So yesterday I read this incredible article about, it was about how your brain processes, it was definitely neuroscience or psychology. It was about how we learn things wrong or how memory works. Anyway, it was really good, I swear. I spent 45 minutes reading it. I nodded the whole time. I even texted a friend, "You need to read this." And right now, I can't tell you one single thing it actually said. Let me show you what this sounds like in my head, in real time. I finished the article, and my brain does this little closing ceremony. Like, great, we covered that, filed away, understood. And there's this warm, satisfied feeling. Like I just deposited something valuable into my brain's savings account. Then someone asks me about it at dinner, and I reach for the deposit and it's not there. There's a shape, a vibe. I can tell you the topic, I can tell you how I felt reading it, but the actual content, the argument, the mechanism, the thing that made me nod is just fog. And then I do the thing. I say, it's hard to explain, but basically, and I hear myself produce a sentence so vague it could describe literally any article ever written. And part of me knows I didn't forget it. I never actually had it.
I did that yesterday. I watched a 20-minute video about decision-making under uncertainty. Fascinating. Couldn't stop thinking about it. Then this morning someone asked what I thought, and I said, and I'm quoting myself here, it was about how we make bad decisions sometimes. 20 minutes. That's what survived. And here's what's interesting. It's not the same as drawing a complete blank. You recognize the topic instantly. You could pick it out of a lineup. But when you try to produce the explanation, the how and the why, there's almost nothing there. Recognition showed up. Depth didn't. We watched the trailer and somehow filed it as having seen the whole movie. Let's run an experiment. Right now, in your own brain. Think of something you learned recently. An article, a video, a podcast, a conversation. Anything you walked away from feeling like you understood. Got one? Now, explain how it works. Not what it was about. Not just the topic. The actual mechanism, the how and the why. Out loud if you can. In your head if you can't. Notice what just happened. You probably knew the topic instantly. You might even have the general direction. But the mechanism, the structure, the part that would actually let you teach it to someone else, there's a gap. And that gap has been invisible. Until this exact moment. Now notice where you feel that gap in your body. Behind your forehead? In your chest? That reaching, grasping quality, like opening a drawer you were sure was full. That gap you just felt? It's not just you. Researchers have been studying it for decades. In 2002, two cognitive scientists ran an elegantly cruel experiment. They asked people to rate how well they understood everyday things. Zippers, toilets, helicopters. Confidence was high. Then came one follow-up. Now explain, step by step, how it actually works. Self-ratings collapsed. Not because people suddenly forgot, but because the demand for an explanation exposed depth that was never there. Rating your understanding is effortless. Explaining requires construction. And for the first time, people had to reach past the gist.
Wait, so the understanding didn't disappear? It just was never there?
The feeling of understanding was always there. But the explanatory structure underneath? Far thinner than your brain reported. Your brain processed the gist, what it's about, roughly how it seems to work, the general category, and stamped it, understood. The gist felt so complete that you never noticed how much of the mechanism was missing. And before you think, but I don't need to explain everything I read, you're right, we'll get to that. And here's the part that makes this feel less like blame and more like biology. Your brain isn't being lazy, it's being efficient. Gist processing is your brain's compression algorithm. It takes complex information, pulls out the meaning, strips away structural detail, and stores the smallest useful summary. For most of human history, that was brilliant. You didn't need to explain how a predator's hunting pattern worked. You just needed to know, avoid that area. Think of your brain as a trailer factory. Every piece of information that comes in, articles, videos, conversations, your brain cuts a trailer. The topic, the emotional tone, the general takeaway, and then it files the trailer as the movie. The full structural detail, the reasoning, the mechanism, the logical chain, gets recycled. Because your brain decided you probably won't need it.
But that's fine, right? If I get the point, I get the point. I don't need to explain every article I read like I'm writing a dissertation.
That's completely fair. And for most of what you consume, that's true. If you're reading for entertainment or general awareness, the gist is enough. The trailer is the right level. The trap isn't that your brain makes trailers. The trap is that it doesn't tell you it made a trailer. It files the trailer with a label that says, full movie. And then, at dinner, in a meeting, in a conversation that matters, you try to play the movie and realize you only have 30 seconds of highlights.
And by then, it's too late.
And once you see this, you'll notice it everywhere.
Read the whole chapter. Produced a sentence that could describe basically any chapter ever written. Watched 60 Minutes. Retained the photography. And the category. Sat through the whole thing. Walked out with a topic and a feeling.
Same pattern. Every single one. They could name what it was about. They could tell you how it felt. But the actual content, the reasoning, the argument, the thing that would let them teach it to someone else, that was never built. The trailer was filed as the movie. And nobody noticed until someone pressed play. And here's the part you can actually feel. Everyone experiences this differently, so treat this as an invitation to notice, not a checklist. Think about the last time you were consuming something and felt that settled, nodding along confidence. That warm, I'm getting this feeling. Some people notice it as a kind of ease behind the eyes. For others, it's a settled feeling in the chest.
The nodding. Yeah, I know that nodding.
That sensation. That's the trailer being stamped. Your brain is compressing. It feels like learning. It's actually filing. Now think about the last time you tried to explain something you were sure you understood. That reaching quality. The fog. Some people feel it as a hollowness behind the forehead. Others feel it as a tightness in the throat, like the words are getting stuck.
Yeah.
That second sensation, that's the moment you press play on the movie, and the trailer starts rolling instead. And your body knows before your mind catches up.
The comfort was the compression. The discomfort is the truth. Okay, but hold on. Sometimes I can explain things. Last week I explained the whole sunk cost thing to my friend. Like why people stay in bad relationships because of the time they've already invested. And I nailed it. That wasn't gist. That was real understanding.
That's real. And it matters. Because it actually proves the pattern instead of breaking it. Think about that conversation. What made it different? I bet you weren't just passively absorbing the sunk cost idea when you first encountered it. Something in it collided with something you'd actually lived through. A relationship, a job, a project you held on to too long. You were actively wrestling with the idea, connecting it to your own experience, questioning it, maybe even arguing with it. You weren't just watching the trailer. You were building the movie yourself, scene by scene.
Yeah, I remember thinking about my own situation while I was reading it. It wasn't theoretical. It was personal.
That's everything. That's the moment your brain switched from trailer mode to construction mode. The gist trap doesn't catch you when you're actively building. It catches you when you're passively receiving. And your brain tells you the receiving was building.
So I'm not losing my memory. And I'm not getting dumber. My brain is just really good at making trailers. And really bad at telling me that's all it made.
That's the gist trap. Your brain takes in information, compresses it to the gist, the topic, the feeling, the general direction, and files it with a label that says, understood. The understanding was real in the moment, but what got stored was the trailer, not the movie.
And I can feel it right now. That warmth when I'm reading, that's not learning. That's my brain stamping the trailer.
And the discomfort when you try to explain, that reaching, grasping, foggy quality, that's not failure. That's the first honest signal you've gotten about what you actually retain.
The confidence was the trap. The struggle to explain was the truth.
So here's the experiment. It's called the teach-back test. The next time you finish reading, watching, or listening to something you actually want to understand, not everything, just the things that matter, pause. Before you move on to the next thing, take 60 seconds and try to explain the core mechanism out loud. Not the topic, not, it was about X. The mechanism, how it works and why. Say it to yourself. Say it to a friend. Say it to your bathroom mirror. The audience doesn't matter. The production matters. And here's the part to notice. When you try to produce the explanation, Check in with your body. If you feel that warm, settled ease, you're still in trailer mode. The explanation is flowing because you're describing the gist, not the mechanism. But if you feel that reaching quality, that fog behind the forehead, the words not quite forming, that's the gist trap showing you exactly where the movie stops and the trailer begins. That's your signal. That's where the real encoding starts.
So I'd say something like, the mechanism is that your brain compresses information down to its gist during processing, and then mislabels that compressed version as full understanding because the gist feels complete.
See what just happened? You didn't say, it was about how brains work. You explained how it works. You built the movie. That took effort. And that effort is exactly what tells your brain to store the structure, not just the summary. Here's your field report this week. Try the teach-back test once a day for 3 days. Pick one thing you consumed that day, one article, one video, one conversation, and give yourself 60 seconds to explain the mechanism. Not the topic, the mechanism. Then notice 2 things. How many of the 3 could you actually explain? And where did you feel the boundary between trailer and movie in your body? Drop your report in the comments. Day 1. Movie/trailer. Felt the gap in my body location. The information was never the problem. Your brain heard everything. The trailer factory just needs someone to occasionally press pause and ask it to build the whole film, one tiny aha at a time.